You ready to do this, Stu?
I am ready. Punch it, Chewie.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Stu Jones.
Hey, wee!
We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode number 94. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Stu, it's been a heck of a week. How are you?
Ow.
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 Uh-oh. Sounds like there's a story here.
I wish there were. Nothing happened. I did not jump off a bridge, swinging 360s around a bar, anything, but I ended up somehow hurting my neck. And this was it started late Friday, and now it's just been nonstop. I went to the doctor yesterday. I haven't slept. It's been a nightmare. I don't know. It's just pain. Now I can move my neck around. I did, have some visual testing and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like a whiplash thing. And it's just, ibuprofen and heat. And then if it doesn't get better, I get to get a big old fat cortisone shot next week.
So did the doctor say that if this soreness lasts more than 4 hours, you should come back?
I've been back every 4 hours, loudly proclaiming
it. Is your neck stiff? I mean, are the muscles tight?
Oh, you're terrible.
I'm just wondering if you didn't swallow the pill all the way and it got lodged in your throat, and that's the problem.
That's not a pill I've ever needed to take, my friend. But other than that, dating sucks and I'm single forever. So yeah, that's my whole week.
Womp, womp, womp.
Yep.
Sorry to hear that, my man.
I'm good. I'm fine.
Well, if you need someone to come lop your head off and give you
if you could just cut off my neck, that would be great.
Just the neck. I can put the head back onto the shoulders.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah. I think I can make that happen. I mean, it's got to have been possible, right?
Actually, I would, except now I have trust issues with you after the pork chop pizza, so.
Oh, here we go again. Here we go, man. I told you I couldn't get it thawed in time.
Mm-hmm.
I will make it good. I promise.
Otherwise, Mo's just doing the school thing. Life is busy. But nothing really unexpected. Thus, I had to throw a neck injury just to keep things interesting.
Right. The only reason you injured your neck was for the podcast.
For the Super Friends.
Yeah, you're sacrificing your body for our Super Friends, and I love that. I had a crazy, amazing weekend, which I can't talk about all of it because there was way, way, way too much to happen. But I went to FanX here in Salt Lake City, which is formerly known as Salt Lake City Comic-Con, which we can't legally say anymore due to San Diego's restriction. So it's called FanX. And for the big kind of event, the big celebrity that was going to be there was David Tennant, who played the 10th Doctor on Doctor Who. And I had purchased a photo op for my wife and I to go as kind of an anniversary gift back in June. And so we got to do that. We also got to go up and talk to him and get his autograph on said photo that we took. And it was so much fun. And let me tell you, his Scottish accent is just amazing. Just in person, it is just amazing. And it, you kind of hear Scrooge McDuck at the same time coming through, since he is the new Scrooge McDuck. But I also took advantage of some other opportunities. I got a photo op with Tom Welling, who played Clark Kent on Smallville. And of course, I'm a massive Superman fan, so that was a lot of fun. I got a picture with Brita and I and Michael Rooker, who plays Yondu on Guardians of the Galaxy. I got to meet Brent Spiner, Lieutenant Commander Data. I got a photo with him.
What did you think of him as a person?
He was actually pretty entertaining. He was pretty funny.
Huh.
He was telling some stories kind of as we were kind of in line, and he was actually taking time with the fans that were coming up and, you know, paying for a selfie or paying for an autograph or, you know, whatever. Some celebrities that have been there, they don't spend a ton of time. They just kind of, you know, next.
Well, it's funny because he's been there a few times now.
Right.
And when we went, there was a Star Trek TNG panel. When we went to do the autograph thing and everything, he was a jerk, 100% a jerk. He was talking to kind of like the backstage people or whatever, like one of them, like his handler and a bunch of people that were behind that. He was very dismissive with everybody that was in line, really giving smart ass remarks to everybody. And it was pretty much in line with what I had heard of his personality before I had ever gone.
Right.
So I was a little disillusioned there, but
see, and I'd heard that before, but when we got there, he had a chair sitting out in front of the booths, because usually everyone's like behind the booth and they just sign out behind the table. He actually was sitting in front of his booth, and he was talking to people, and like he literally probably talked to me for probably a good 5 minutes. I mean, and there was other people just waiting, but he was talking to me. The people in front, he was talking to them, and like people would ask him a question, and he'd kind of tell a little story or, you know, relate something. And it was interesting because I have heard that he can be a little standoffish with the fans, but I didn't have that experience at all. So
well, good.
Maybe things have been a little different. I did get a picture with Tricia Helfer, who plays our favorite Cylon 6 from Battlestar Galactica. And let me just tell you, she is still a beautiful, beautiful woman.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. I'll show you a picture. I got a picture. I'm gonna put some pictures up on social media. And then I did get to meet one other person, but I'm going to hold back that information till a little later in the show for reasons you will understand at that point.
But it was being a lot of mysterious again.
That's true. We went to a lot of panels. We had a lot of fun. We got to see a lot of great cosplay. I'm actually working on a costume for some cosplay, so I've got someone commissioned to do some pieces for me, to do some sewing, and I will talk about that on a later podcast as well. But pretty excited about that. It was just a great weekend. One thing I will share is Manu Bennett, who, if you know him or you don't know him, Manu Bennett is on Arrow. He told this story basically, like he was like in his panel was like really open, really touching, but like he told this story about growing up where he had this like bully, and he got bullied a lot because he was in ballet classes, you know, for dance, and did a bunch of other stuff in New Zealand. And he was getting bullied by this kid all the time and just couldn't figure out why. This kid was always picking on him, always starting fights with him. And then Manu Bennett told a story about how he was in this really, really bad car wreck, and his whole family was there, and how he got thrown through the window, and that's why he's got those scars on his face that people think is like action makeup, you know, for movies or whatever, but it's real. And that his mom died in the car wreck, and he was in a coma for like something like 2 weeks, and he woke up from the coma, and they told him that his mom was there, and the first person he saw, that come in was this kid who'd been a bully, like through like elementary school, junior high kind of years up into high school. And turned out that this bully like lost his mom when he was a real young kid, and basically his pain was that he felt like Manu Bennett basically had everything. He had the good looks, he had, you know, a mom and a dad, he had all these things, and so there was kind of an insecurity there. And when Manu lost his mom, he was the one to be there, and, you know, they kind of had like a shared pain, and he said that like they ended up growing really close and becoming really good friends, that he actually was the best man at this guy's wedding. And like, you know, that they forged a brotherhood, you know, kind of through that moment. And it was really kind of this really touching moment. And he was talking about, you know, high school bullies and losing his mom and like how all of that kind of went in and played into the man that he is today. And it was refreshing and interesting because I sat through a whole bunch of panels, and a lot of them were, yeah, when I played this character, I did this. And when I played this character, I did this. And I looked at these scripts, and this is kind of what I'm doing now. Kind of the typical fare for a panel, but this wasn't. It was just completely different. It was special. It was very unique, and I really, really enjoyed that. I met a lot of.
He's been here a lot. I don't think he lives in the Salt Lake area, but he's here. He's been here, I think, for all but one Comic-Con, FanX, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And he does a lot of events in Salt Lake. I wouldn't be surprised if he like lived in Vegas or something, or I don't know. But yeah, he's always around. He's awesome. I've met him a few times, like the first few that I went to that he was at, and really stand-up guy. He's awesome.
That's, that was my impression of him the whole time. I met some cool people. I sat in on some D&D panels, which is going to, I think, help tremendously for our upcoming campaign we're going to be starting this week.
Awesome. One of them led by one of our mutual friends, Henry.
Right, Henry. Yeah, I was sitting in there and I kept thinking, I'm like, man, this guy, I know this guy. Like, he looks super familiar. Yeah. And then come to find out, he worked at the game store that you used to work at, and I used to run a community there and whatnot. And so here's the cool thing. His wife, Eliora, does a bunch of artwork. Eliora draws. And I went over to their booth, and they're local, and I kind of know them a little bit, have that connection. So I bought some artwork from them. And I also bought some artwork that I'm going to give away on the podcast in a future podcast. And so I also did that with one other art vendor too. I found some really cool kind of word art that makes some images, and my wife wanted a piece and I wanted a piece, and I got another piece that I'm going to give away on the podcast as well in a future episode. Nice. Just as kind of a little something extra to do for our super friends. Yeah.
LER is doing it right. When actually back in those days when we were doing the card games at the game store, and then I started working there, I know she was just starting to kind of get her feet wet professionally, and she was doing some stuff for I think it was an iPhone app. And then just started doing her own work and everything. And I've loved seeing her progression. She's got all of her stuff on Facebook, or not all of her stuff, but she's got a lot of her stuff on Facebook, and seeing, you can like kind of go chronologically through everything that she's done and seeing how her art develops. And it's cool just to see someone kind of evolve into what they want to do. And she's great.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I really loved her stuff. And anyway, so we're going to make sure that when we give that stuff out, we're going to put up links to her stuff so you can go out and see it everywhere that it is, because it's great. And we'll try to make sure we get her stuff out there a little early so people can go see it, but we're going to give some stuff away. But yeah, just a great weekend, a lot of fun, and just kind of back into the swing of things this week. It's going to be a real busy week. We're recording the podcast a day late to help give you a little bit of time to heal your bum neck.
Yeah, and didn't do any good. We should have recorded last night and got it over with.
Well, do what you got to do, that sort of thing. And so I got a lot kind of going on, but it'll be a great week. It'll be a lot of fun, and man, let's get the party rolling. What do you say?
There's only one way to get a party rolling, my friend. Let's kill some Bothans.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Stu, we're into Rebel Intelligence. What do you have for me this week?
Have you ever played The Witcher, any of the Witcher games?
I have not.
So Witcher 3, hugely popular, definitely leaps and bounds ahead of its predecessors. Such a deep and rich game. The character of Geralt, he is very dark. You have your typical RPG tropes or fantasy tropes where, the good guys, they're kind of jerks if they're asking for money or doing anything. But our main character for The Witcher is a professional monster hunter. He doesn't even go out on the job, until he's secured his payment and knows, how it's going to go. So it's a little bit more practical in that regard. And I think that kind of speaks to the world at large. Anyway, the game is based on a group of novels by, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. It's Polish, Andrzej Sapkowski.
What was that again?
Yes, I'm not saying that twice. But they adapted that. They adapted the world anyway to a company called CD Projekt Red. They developed the Witcher games. They're also developing that Cyberpunk 2077.
Right.
Oh man, I'm excited for that. Anyway, hugely popular series. A lot of people love it. They're now adapting that to Netflix.
Ooh.
Netflix is, and this is kind of a little old news. They've been announcing that they were going to do that for a while now, but they finally got some details. It's going to be 8 episodes long. It's going to be based on the fantasy novels more so than the games, though there is a lot of crossover material. They are kind of separate but co-joined stories, if you will, involving Geralt. Some people say Geralt. I always say Geralt. I don't know. But a little bit of internet hype around the fact that they have finally cast the lead character, Geralt, Henry Cavill.
Ooh, good old Superman, huh?
Yep, we already know he's got the propensity for killing people, so this should help.
Zack Snyder, thank you very much.
I think it's going to be good. There's a dryness to Geralt that exists without diminishing his character. I think that kind of is really Henry's style as well as an actor. I think it's a great pairing. I can see the look for that working out. I happen to love him as an actor, even outside the Superman stuff. I love the Superman stuff, but I think he's really good. And I'm excited to really kind of see this coming into action. It was also cool that the way he announced this was on Henry's Instagram page. He had a big image of who's watching Netflix, and you know how you have the little icons next to the names?
Yeah.
And it's got a picture of his TV, who's watching Netflix? Geralt of Rivia, whatever. And and then the hype train started going with all the promotional stuff. But
Right. This is interesting. So I've never played a Witcher game. I know they're big, long games, and I actually have Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. Mm-hmm. I haven't started it, though, because I know it's a big, massive game, and I'm already stretched thin on games right now. I'm in a lot of places.
Yeah, you don't want to play The Witcher 3 without having 100 hours already set aside of your time.
Right. So here's what I'm thinking. Maybe I just wait till it comes to Netflix.
Yeah, but you're not getting the same experience.
That's true, but if I get some experience that'll be close to the character that he is in the games, then I can feel like I at least have an understanding or a kind of maybe a taste of what that world is like and what that character is like without having to put aside 100 hours.
Well, it's worth the 100 hours, just saying.
Well, maybe, when I find 100 hours here, 100 hours there, 100 hours just lying underneath the couch cushions, I'll make it happen.
I need to check under the couch cushions for some of my time.
Yeah, it hides there occasionally. Okay, well, I'm gonna transition and I'm gonna go to the thing I don't want to talk about because I feel like I'm the harbinger of death on this podcast. But I'm gonna get it out of the way now. So this last week, Burt Reynolds passed away. Burt Reynolds obviously was extremely popular in the late 70s, early 80s, starred in big films like Deliverance, The Longest Yard, Smokey and the Bandit. Later in life in the late 90s, he was in Boogie Nights, and I think he was actually up for an Oscar for that role. He's done a bunch of other stuff. I mean, he was in a lot of things. But I know during like the late 70s, early 80s, there was like a 4-year period I read where he was in a major big budget picture like every year or something. Like he had 4 movies all out at the same time that he was in it. So it was interesting that Burt Reynolds said that he basically made movies that were fun. He basically made movies that he got a kick out of doing, like Smokey and the Bandit and Cannonball Run and Starting Over, and that he basically just did it for the laughs. And, he was having a good time. That he really didn't care about the accolades and the taking more serious roles until eventually he kind of had a moment where he did kind of wake up and realize he wanted to do that. But at that point, like his career had kind of passed him by for a lot of those roles, and people just wouldn't kind of give him that chance anymore. But he said though that he basically felt he had nothing to apologize for. He loved it. He died this last week of cardiopulmonary arrest, so basically had a heart attack. He was 82 years old. So rest in peace, Burt Reynolds.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, man, I'm the harbinger of death on this podcast.
Trust me, the only thing worse than giving that news is following it up.
Sorry.
So, anyway, and what the internet thought was going to be internet breaking, this week we got the first look of Brie Larson's Captain Marvel.
Ooh, yes, we did.
So there was a little bit of hinting on the interwebs. Brie herself kind of responsible for, hey, Marvel, should we break the internet kind of thing? And everyone kind of flipped their lids. Everyone thought the first trailer was coming. But no, it was really just a cover of Entertainment Weekly spotlighting Captain Marvel.
Did they do some promotional stills also?
Yeah, there were a couple things that were there were some photos of that. We see Nick Fury with 2 eyes.
Ooh.
Thus, we already kind of know it's in the past, but
right.
She's rocking a 9 Inch Nails t-shirt. There's the Skrulls. I don't know why that's a big deal, but everyone seems to be going kind of ape crazy over the fact that the Skrulls they're all over Earth. So yeah, I mean, we got some pictures, we got a cover. We did not get a trailer. The internet did not, in fact, actually break.
Right.
I was able to continue working, unfortunately, so.
I don't think we're going to get a trailer on that till sometime after the first of the year.
I would say probably actually around the Christmas time movies, but close.
Yeah, because I think they're slating that movie for what, like February, March, something like that.
Oh,
of
you have
next
to ask
year.
me stuff like that, don't you?
I think that's when it is, February or March, because then I think Avengers 4 is going to be in like May of next year.
March.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I don't think we get a trailer till we're 2-3 months out.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my money on Christmas stuff. It's I think Super Bowl's a little too late, so that leaves Christmas.
Yeah, I agree. Super Bowl is too late. What big movies though are coming out from Disney around Christmas time that they would put that with? Because we don't have a Star Wars movie coming out this Christmas.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a Disney movie though. They put Disney trailers on other movies.
That is true, but I feel like lately we've been seeing a lot of the big Marvel tentpole type of things coming with
they'll
big
find
Disney
a way.
properties.
They'll find a way.
Life finds a way. Speaking of Jeff Goldblum and Marvel and all things in the Marvel universe, Black Panther, big popular movie, right?
Well, so I've been told.
Yeah, big popular movie, made a grundle of money for the studio. And Marvel is planning on pushing Black Panther for a lot of Oscar categories because they're going to try to, do that because they have people that lobby the Academy. Well, the interesting thing is just recently this last year, the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, they announced a plan to create a new category for the best popular film. And a lot of people kind of went kind of nuts when they heard this because they felt like this is just them trying to throw a bone to a movie like Black Panther, because Black Panther is probably going to be nominated for things like, visual effects and costumes and maybe sound effects editing or something like that. But it's not going to get nominated most likely for Best Picture, even though there's a lot of people that would say it was the best picture of the year. I am not in that camp, but
Infinity War before Black Panther in most of those categories, in my opinion, but
I would agree. But a lot of the internet and a lot of Hollywood also felt like it was just kind of a toss in a bone, a half-hearted attempt to give Black Panther, because Black Panther was very critically acclaimed, it was financially successful, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's, Oscar worthy for Best Picture. Well, now the Academy's kind of backtracking a little bit, and you had some people speak out. Steven Spielberg, famous director, Laura Dern, famous actress, came out and basically said, like, this is a dumb idea. Like, we celebrate the Oscars, we celebrate for technical achievements, for, writing, for whatever. And then the best picture is supposed to be like, that's supposed to be the thing that stands up. Like, it had like, as much of all the best elements combined into one, it says something. And basically Laura Dern says she was adamantly opposed to this idea. Spielberg says he was uncomfortable with plans to introduce the category at the coming Oscars. And I look at it like this. The movie made a lot of money. It was critically successful. They're not hurting. It's not a Best Picture Oscar contender in my book. Creating a special category that says, hey, most popular, why would we want the Academy to say, hey, in order to, kind of get people to watch our show or to be interested in this, we're going to create a popularity contest. That's not what this should be about. It should be about the best films of the year, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you think, Stu? Are you on board with the best popular category?
I am. Every movie gets a trophy.
Yeah, see, there you hit it right on the head for me.
I personally have lost faith in the Oscars a long time ago. They are, at this point, they're a marketing lobby, avenue for major studios and certain industry lobbyists to be able to kind of move and get their way by influencing some of those things. A lot of things are still hush-hush about it. I don't know. I watch them because it's nice I watch them because it's more like a gambling kind of thing. Like, we're going to get these 5 potential winners in each of these categories and we're all going to guess. And you see all these Oscar parties but it's really not so much about celebrating those movies as it is about celebrating the event itself. And right. I think that's kind of where it lost its way. And, I personally, like, you see people like Leo DiCaprio, who basically, it was forever before he finally got his Oscar. That was the meme, right?
Yeah.
But,
same thing with like Martin Scorsese.
Right. And it's a lot of this has nothing to do with these people as professionals or even against the movies that they were up against. There are many different reasons that there have been many upsets, many surprises. I don't think it's really worth all that much. And to have a trophy category like this, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not on board either. I say make it about merit, make it about quality, but don't make it about like, hey, this movie was super popular this year, so here you get a golden statue.
Right. In that regard, this, like you had mentioned, the success and the financial prosperity of the movie should be its own reward in that regard. So, right? It did extremely freaking well. Who should be upset that they didn't get the most popular trophy?
Right.
Dumb.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we see eye to eye on this, Stu.
Well, we would, except I'm not looking over at my camera.
Yeah, well, true. All right, what else you got for me?
Oh, it's my turn. Of course, the one thing I actually, should have done a little more digging into, but I'm excited nonetheless. The funny thing is I'm really excited about this, even though I'm not even a fan. And that's regarding Joey Whittaker's Doctor Who.
Oh.
So with that, I guess I don't really know much about Doctor Who, but I love the idea of it being a female character. I was actually just having this conversation earlier today with somebody that I love the evolution of characters. We actually happened to be talking about the Joker, how I actually didn't really necessarily mind Jared Leto's Joker so much. No, it's not the classic Joker, and it doesn't make any attempts to be, but it is an evolution of the character, and it's exploring new space. And that's really what I think is exciting about it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's fine.
Right.
But Joey Whittaker as the Doctor, a lot of people are excited about this. I think it really kind of gives a huge milestone for women in popular media and roles that they're taking. And like we even see Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. She's the first lead character in a Marvel movie. So it's, women are coming up in this, and it can't just be, let's throw a woman in there for it being a woman's sake.
So are we discounting Jennifer Garner and Elektra? Or are you just talking the MCU specifically? Okay.
The previous Marvel movies don't exist even to Marvel at this point. So
okay, yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, so I'm very stoked to see this happen. I'm actually probably more interested in trying to catch up on Doctor Who now than I've ever been. I definitely want to see the David Tennant stuff. I just can't do it out of order. And that first, what is it, Mickelson?
Christopher Eccleston.
Eccleston. Yeah. Oh my, I couldn't stand him.
So let me make this pitch, and this is what I tell most people. The show, when it came back, because there was a little bit of a hiatus, and start with Christopher Eccleston, production values are really low. It was only being like really broadcast over in England on the BBC. And Christopher Eccleston actually plays a pretty good doctor. Like I actually enjoyed him, but some of the stories and some of the things are a little hokey and they're a little hard to watch. But if you can watch Star Trek, the original series, you can watch this. Because the sets and some of the monsters kind of have that same kind of like, this is a little hokey, little, low production budgeting, but you get past it because it's really the overall story of the Doctor. When he transitions into David Tennant's Doctor, the show is starting to pick up popularity. The production value starts picking up more. They start getting more money to put into it. David Tennant is fantastic. And then it just gets better. Matt Smith is great. Peter Capaldi's growing on me. I'm really looking forward to Jodie Whittaker. I want to see what's going to happen.
Righto, governor.
So yeah, just bear with it. That first season, you're just going to have to kind of grit it and get through it.
I don't have to do anything. But this could be the thing that I go back to and give a fourth, maybe fifth chance to. I don't know. It might be worth it just to get to Jodie Whittaker stuff. Anyway, so it's going to be appearing on October 7th, which is a Sunday, which is apparently
close.
It's a new night for the show, apparently, which is a big deal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's getting a lot of good traction is the title of the first episode, The Woman Who Fell to Earth.
Yes.
So
there's something else, though, that I don't think you brought up, but I've seen, and this has got me actually more excited than anything else.
What's that?
Is that they're going to simulcast it. So it'll actually be broadcast on BBC America and the BBC there at the same time. In the past, it's actually aired a few months earlier in England. And so if you know how to navigate the interwebs, you could kind of watch it or figure out what happens before it gets actually broadcast here in America. And now they're going to do it at the same time, so they're going to avoid that issue. And that makes me happy because I hated waiting extra time for it.
I guess there's something here. I don't know, because they say that the release dates vary by country and that it will air on BBC America on Sundays. It doesn't necessarily, at least just the article I'm looking at, say anything about them being simulcast, but that's a pretty huge thing. Because, I mean, Doctor Who is pretty huge in America these days, so...
Right.
Yeah, they're not losing anything by doing that.
Yeah, maybe simulcast isn't the right because the time difference, right? It'd be like a 7-hour difference, but it will be broadcast on Sundays and it's being broadcast on Sundays in England as well. So, I mean, there'll be a 7-hour time difference, but it is being broadcast on the same day. So it's not months apart like it was before.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have much time to catch up and I probably won't, but not on time to watch it as it airs, but we'll see.
Yeah, you can record it and watch it after the fact.
Record it, sure.
Or, catch it on Amazon Prime is where it'll be. Okay, so Avengers 4, we know is coming out in May. Reshoots for Avengers 4 started this month in September. And of all people to be talking about the Avengers 4 movie, Mark Ruffalo would not be my pick, especially considering that he pretty much about a year before Avengers Infinity War came out, he basically spoiled the ending in a video that went viral after the fact with him and Don Cheadle in an interview. But basically, he's been interviewed recently, and he says that they're reshooting, but that they're using the reshoots to actually finish the second movie. He claims that basically they filmed the majority of the movie at the same time they filmed the first one, but that they're using the reshoots basically to film it, that some of the things had changed, that there's been some script changes, and he's basically saying that no one really knows the ending yet, but the second installment's going to come, and basically the Russo brothers are still figuring things out, and so that's what they're going to be reshooting. I I heard this and I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but man, why are you letting Ruffalo talk about it? I mean, is this like a redemption thing, or
Well,
is this more...
they've kept him from even being able to know what it is. If he doesn't know the truth, he can't spoil the truth. But yeah, the whole reshoot strategy is actually not all that uncommon either, especially if there are some scenes that are questionable and that they already expect that they're going to know that they need to reshoot. So dependent scenes on those will also wait for the reshoots, even just to shoot them for the first time. It's just fairly efficient in that regard, and hopefully they don't need to reshoot the reshoots.
Right. It's just kind of interesting though, because it makes the film more of a kind of a living thing, right? I mean, it's not done. It's not fully created. It's still a work in progress. And I kind of like that from a creative aspect, just because I know that they're going to be putting finishing touches up on it right until the last moment. And like, I know that with like Lord of the Rings, they filmed all 3 of those movies together.
Yeah.
But then they ended up going back and doing reshoots to kind of, finish some things or change some things up a little bit. Like literally prior to, I think, the Two Towers and Return of the King, I think I remember reading Peter Jackson said that like with Return of the King, he was still like in the editing suite trying to finish up some finishing touches literally like a week before it went live.
That was a big production.
Absolutely. But we'll see what happens. Mark Ruffalo doesn't appear to have given anything away, but we'll have to see what happens after the 4th movie comes out. And maybe he gave it everything away and we just don't know it yet.
Maybe that's Doctor Strange's strategy, is in the one timeline where they win, it's because they reshoot the movie over and over again until they win.
And Mark Ruffalo is the one that lets us know about it?
He just did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. Mind blown.
Aliens.
Aliens, yes. The Chitauri. Anyway, that's all I have in Rebel Intelligence this week. Stu, do you have anything else?
I do not.
All right. Last week, Stu, we had a wonderful conversation. We ended up talking about some of our favorite movies, which was a lot of fun. The week kind of went on and I did the editing, I was listening to yours, listening to mine. I kept thinking, man, I would have liked to have talked about this and talked about this too, but trying to keep your favorite movies to your top 3 is kind of hard.
It is. But you know what we should do is we should submit last week's episode to the Screen Actors Guild, and see if they can add a most popular of Fortress of Nerditude category.
Or maybe a most popular Fortress of Nerditude reviewing our favorite movies category. I mean, we'd win that, right?
Wow. I think we would.
When you get that granular. Well, we had a conversation. We asked our super friends, what are your favorite movies?
Better than multicam comedy sitcoms.
Right.
Sorry.
We got some responses. So let's go to email our good old friend, Peter Christensen.
Hello, Peter Christensen.
Dear nerds, we're currently rewatching How I Met Your Mother, and it's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I like this, but I'm gonna rewrite this for Peter. Dear nerds, we're currently rewatching How I Met Your Mother, and is wait for it, legendary. There you go, Peter. He says, Spence, don't forget Belgian waffles. He says, Crazy Rich Asians is like my big fat Greek wedding, and the prince and me had a baby, A++. My favorite movie is Willow. I didn't see any of the Star Wars movies as a kid, and you could charitably say Willow, a George Lucas story, mirrors the structure and characters of Star Wars. So Mad Mardigan took the place of Han Solo, General Kale as Darth Vader, Queen Bavmorda as the Emperor, the Brownies as C-3PO and R2-D2, an ice battle and a forest battle, and surprise raid on an impregnable fortress. Last but not least, Willow as Luke Skywalker, a short, whiny nobody from an anonymous backwater who goes on a quest, learns some magic, but uses the skills he learned as a nobody to save the day in the end. Because I saw this movie first, and many, many, many times, the Star Wars characters never really found the same place in my heart. I have seen better movies, and no movie is as important to my childhood love of movies than Willow. Honorable mention to The Princess Bride and Conan the Destroyer. Basically, if there was a sword or a robot in it, I would watch it as a kid. Cheers, Peter Christensen.
That's a good criteria for any movie that I watched as a kid as well.
Swords and robots.
Swords and robots, for sure. No, I absolutely agree. And that was that's not the first time I've heard that comparison. it's really George Lucas's vision of the hero's journey. Just this time was the fantasy on the ground rather than the fantasy in space.
Right.
And Conan the Destroyer, heck yes.
I don't remember if I've actually seen Conan the Destroyer. I know I've seen Conan the Barbarian.
Man. It's so much better. I mean, I loved Conan the Barbarian, and it was dark, and I loved James Earl Jones's villain and whatnot. But Conan the Destroyer with Grace Jones and the little Asian wizard guy, I can't remember his character's name. It was more of a party kind of thing, even though it was Conan in the middle of it. And just the story was, I remember liking it better. I haven't seen either one of them in such a long time, but yeah, I loved it more than the first. That was clear to me. So
I may have to go back and watch those again. I'm sure they're somewhere on streaming. I can find them.
Oh yeah.
Let's move over to Twitter. On Twitter, Tim Paulin at tpaulin20. So many favorites. This was hard to pick, so here's 3 with no explanation. Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh.
The Fifth Element.
Yeah, that was on my list for a while.
Monsters, Inc.
Yeah.
Okay. He says no explanation.
No, Fifth Element was my favorite movie for a couple years. Like, I could watch that movie over and over and over again. So great.
Ruby Rod.
I am a meat popsicle.
Alan Paxton at Alan_Paxton. If we're talking of all time, it's Jaws. That movie has everything you could want in a perfect blockbuster, but with heart that too few other movies have. If we're talking recent memory, Steve Jobs. On paper, it shouldn't work, but the structure / casting / acting / direction all work. I think I've seen the Steve Jobs film. I know for sure I've seen Jaws many, many, many times.
Many first dates that have put out restraining orders.
Yeah, I mean, it's an idea. I gotta say, yeah, I love Jaws.
Jaws is awesome. I wouldn't call it top 10 material for myself, but Jaws was great.
The Nintendo Guru at Nintendo Gurus says, mine is The Dark Knight. To me, it's a perfect film that if you pulled Batman and the Joker out of, it is still a fantastic film. I think you could pull Batman out of that film and it'd be a fantastic film, and I think you could put Batman back in and pull the Joker out and it could still be a fantastic film. I don't know if you could pull out Batman and the Joker at the same time and it'd be a fantastic film.
I don't know. I loved everything about that movie, so
it's a great movie. And let's be honest, Heath Ledger just
But that opening scene with the clowns at the bank, that was the perfect setup for that movie. It was ridiculous.
So good. So good. Moving on. Mike BC at Mike BC 1985. I have too many multiple favorites. Blade Runner is legendary for me. So many things have come true. Phantom of the Opera. I'm a singer. Kind of surprised this is the only musical. 007 GoldenEye. So much nostalgia. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I can well recite this one. Yes.
Yep.
I'm looking at that. I've seen Blade Runner a few times. For me, it's not up in my top 10, but I do enjoy the movie. Phantom of the Opera, well, I'm also been known to sing a thing or two in my past. That's not really up there for me. But GoldenEye, man, talking about James Bond movies, that is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I don't know. I am a sucker for Danny Craig, all except for Quantum of Solace.
Yes,
I think we're just superb films. Not to say that 007, those weren't fantastic in and of themselves. I just think that the direction they took with the newer Bond kind of made it fresh and current to current events and modern action movies, and I thought they did it so great. But 007's, I mean, there's really not a bad era for 007. Maybe a couple movies that
George Lazenby's
eras,
Secret Service,
not specific actors.
Oh yeah, well.
But then, sorry, what was the first one?
Blade Runner.
Yeah, Blade Runner. So, Blade Runner's tough. Blade Runner was really horribly cut, I think. And there are I think there are 5 different versions. I've got a Blu-ray version of Blade Runner that has all 5 of them.
Right.
There are a couple versions that actually put it together so much better, and a couple that just really throw it even further out into left field. But when you kind of get it all in it and it's fluid on one of the cuts, it's so much better and it all makes more sense. And you're not stuck trying to rethink a couple things as you're going through the movie, because the movie forces you to think a little too hard in the wrong places, I think, sometimes. But the new Blade Runner, great out the gate.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. I'll have to give that a shot. Moving on, Nerdish67 at dspin67 says, "You mean my favorite movies?" Says, number 1, The Godfather 1 and 2, The Corleone Family and Their Rise in Power. Like most trilogies, the third was meh, not so good. Number 2, Aliens, follow-up to Alien, action and good pacing. That is one of those ones where I think Alien is an amazing movie, but I think Aliens, the sequel, is as good, if not a little bit better.
They were 2 really different movies.
Yeah, they were.
And to me, they both won in their own respective categories, I guess. Because one was just gripping and suspenseful, and that was one of the old school horror movies that had you ready to pee yourself at the next, camera flip. Aliens was just really action packed and really just in your face and monsters and rah rah and just totally aggressive.
And James Cameron in Aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Terminator and Terminator 2 for me. Like the Terminator 1 and Alien have that kind of same feel, suspense, a little more gritty, and then, Aliens and Terminator 2 is a little more big budget, a little more money. Let's more shoot 'em up. His last thing, he says, number 3, Toy Story, the one that started it all for Pixar. I've seen that movie a lot. I think it's a fantastic movie.
I think it's good. I do not see it as one of my favorite animated in modern history at all.
I love it. I don't know if I'd put it in my top 10. Maybe if I was talking top 10 animated, maybe.
Well, if you're talking top 10 animated, I like probably less than 10 animated films, so it's going to be Finding Nemo for me. That's number 1 if I'm going there.
Okay. Stu, we have a voicemail to listen to.
Oh, well, let's fire up the old voicemail soundaphone thing.
Let's do it.
What's up, nerds and nerdettes? What's up, Spencer and Stu? I'm still a few episodes behind, so I don't know if anybody's answered the call for more voicemails, but here I go. Going for the favorite movies. There are tons of movies that I would consider that are my favorite, but 2 really pop out at me. Ghostbusters and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie. I really like Ghostbusters because you can still watch it today, even though it's dated. It still has good laughs, good action, and it's just all around good movie. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, however, is probably one up on the Ghostbusters. So Ghostbusters would probably be my number 2. With all of the iterations of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first movie is probably my favorite because it's my turtles. Those are the turtles that I grew up with. Yep, that's about it. TMNT is my number 1, Ghostbusters number 2. Thanks, guys. Keep up the nerdy work. Else time.
All right, Paul Calico coming in there with Ghostbusters. I'm liking that.
No, Ghostbusters is an all-time movie for sure. I mean, and I think really that's what works against it for being a top 3 for me is it's always going to be there, right? It's reliable, it's static. Other movies are going to be newer and more enjoyable maybe for a time. But I mean, there are certain movies Force Awakens for me, that one I can watch that over and over and over and over and over. But Ghostbusters definitely is one of my all-time favorite movies. And that it's not top 3 is just to say that there are so many other movies out there.
Yeah.
TMNT.
Yeah. Now, I know Paul's a massive Turtles fan, massive Turtles fan.
Yeah.
And so, if that's kind of your fandom, and that was your version of your favorite version of the Turtles and what, you grew up on, I get that. I get why that could be his favorite. For me, it's not going to crack my top 10. But if I'm going just, something like I said, if I'm going something I loved, something I grew up with, the nostalgia, the emotional connection, I understand how you could make something like that into your top few if you've got that connection.
Yeah, I watched the cartoons. I didn't really get into it all that much. I was not a huge Turtles fan like some of my other friends. But I did watch the movie, watched it several times. I enjoyed it. I see the appeal for it. Definitely, if you're a Turtles fan, that's going to be your representation. And I think for a representation of that, it was done really well, especially the first one. And I know that nobody's talking about the Michael Bay stuff.
Yeah, no. And most people aren't going to talk about Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze. I mean, it had Vanilla Ice in it, but Bebop and Rocksteady were in it, and it was really weird, and it wasn't, very true to the comics. I remember seeing it, and I didn't care for it as a kid. But I did like the first one as a kid, and I really thought Casey Jones was really cool in that movie.
Well, there you go.
But, yeah. Thank you so much, Super Friends, for answering our question of the week. We appreciate your input. We appreciate the back and forth that we can have with you guys and our guys and gals in our community. You can always reach us on the old email, which is fordofnerd@gmail.com. Those get read every week. If you get us on Twitter or Facebook, there's always a little bit of a gamble. You might not get read because sometimes that's where we get a lot of the responses. But we're on Facebook, facebook.com/FordofNerd, and we're on Twitter @FordofNerd. Now, if you did like Paul Calico, it is a guarantee you get on the show. You leave us that voicemail, 801-477-7687, and we'll play that as long as it's within reason. You get a little crazy, and we may have to censor you.
Well, those are the opportunities that let us get up and go make a sandwich.
Yeah,
that's what that's about.
True. So anyway, the Super Friends, thank you so much for your answers this week. Stu, Super Friends are out there. They're talking. We got some new Super Friends joining us weekly. How can our Super Friends help us out?
They can send a masseuse to my house. Please, dear
or a
God.
new neck.
Well, I am kind of fond of my neck. I've heard that my voice is pretty cool, so my neck is responsible for that. I'm thinking maybe a masseuse would be better. But in lieu of masseuse, send an X. Also, because it would make me feel better to crane my neck to look at all those stars. If you guys love 5-star reviews on iTunes, you could kind of make me suffer and enjoy that, because I would enjoy the suffering of looking at all the 5 stars. That's how we get noticed. That's how we get ratings on iTunes. That's how we make it on lists. That's how people find us without the word of mouth. But that is not to say that we don't appreciate the word of mouth. And as we've been mentioning on the last couple podcasts, tell a friend if they're asking about podcasts. Tell a friend if they don't even really know what podcasts are and just want to talk about some nerdy stuff. I've seen a lot of comments on Twitter about discussions that people are having with their spouses or things like that. Just kind of bring it up, talk about it. That's what we like to do with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of conversations, Stu, I wanted to chat with you. We kind of had an idea this week. Do something a little different for our kind of discussion we usually have. I thought about we could maybe spotlight a superhero, a character in the comics, movies, TV, that we could kind of talk about in a little bit of detail.
Is it Squirrel Girl?
It's not Squirrel Girl.
Oh, dang it.
And the reason I thought of this character is for a few reasons. One, I've started the 4th season of this character's show on Netflix. And 2, I met the original OG TV version of this character this weekend at FanX.
I have a feeling this is going to be a very fast discussion.
Oh, very nice. Very punny. I had a chance to meet John Wesley Shipp. John Wesley Shipp plays the Flash. He played the Flash from like 90 to 91. And then, of course, on the new version of the TV show, he plays Barry Allen's father, Henry. And then he also plays a different version of the Flash, Jay Garrick's version of the Flash. And so I got a chance to meet him this weekend. And the funny thing is like, he was a super nice guy. He took time. He was just talking with me for a little while.
Why was that funny?
No, well, it's okay. So I guess what had happened, let me back up. What was funny, I mean, not haha funny, but humorous to me was I was standing in line to get our photo for David Tennant. This was on Thursday late afternoon. And I saw John Wesley Shipp walking kind of through the crowd of people with the person that he was kind of there, his handler, the person that kind of works with him, that kind of helps him out when he goes to cons. And he wasn't being like mauled by fans or anything. He was just kind of walking through and just kind of like looking around and smiling. And he happened to look like right at me. And like we weren't like super close to each other. We were probably, I don't know, a good 200 feet apart, maybe 150 feet apart. But he looked right at me and he caught my eye, and I smiled at him and he smiled back. And then as I was smiling, I just kind of waved my hand and, waved at him. And he raised his hand and waved back at me. And, and then just kept smiling, then kind of kept walking on his way. And I turned and looked at my wife. I was like, no one else saw that. Like John Wesley Shipp, The Flash, Henry Allen, Jay Garrick's version of The Flash, just waved at me. He's having a good time. He was just kind of walking through the crowd and like wasn't being mobbed or anything. And so I had this moment. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a little bit of extra time during the con. I'm gonna go over and see if I can say hello to him, talk to him for a little bit, because I always enjoy meeting someone, one of the celebrities that looks like they're just genuinely having a good time, wanting to touch base with fans, and are just kind of soaking it all up and just enjoying themselves. And he seemed like that, so I had a chance to go over and talk to him, and I talked about The Flash, and I had a chance to tell him that my son Jackson loves The Flash. He's never seen The Flash. He's never read the comics, but he knows that the lightning symbol on the red background means the Flash goes really, really fast. And so he's got Flash underwear, and every single time those things get cleaned, they're the first pair of underwear he wants to wear. He's got 2 different Flash t-shirts and a pair of Flash pajamas that he just loves.
Do you call them flajamas?
No, we don't call him flajamas. But he puts them on and he says, Daddy, I'm the Flash. And then he like runs real fast and pumps his little arms in the air. It's the cutest thing in the world. And so I got to tell him, that I was really excited to get to meet him and to take a photo with him. And that I can't wait to show this to my son one day when he's a little older and kind of understands that John Wesley Shipp has portrayed the Flash a number of times and, is really knowledgeable about the comics and everything. So I thought we could talk a little bit about the character The Flash this week.
Seems a little self-serving.
Well,
it's your podcast, so I mean,
gotta go with what you know.
Yeah, no, I like The Flash. I mean, just as the general overview of The Flash, he was not one of them that I really paid much attention to as a kid, except when the original Flash was on TV. You better believe I was glued to it, because that was like, at the time, was probably the only. Well, no, there was also Shazam,
right?
But the Flash was on, and that was, to me, that was like the show I got to watch, because otherwise it was on my parents' stupid crap. But the Flash has always been kind of like the underwhelming visual aspect of a superhero. He's not grandiose. He's not got this big blue yellow thing and flies all over the universe. It's like it's red or orange, depending on how you see the hue.
Right.
But I mean, it's just fast, and that's a superpower, and that's kind of really just not as exciting as a lot of other things. But then growing up and understanding and seeing it portrayed in the new television show and in the movie, and also in DCUO, DC Universe Online, the Flash has become one of my favorite superheroes. And I don't know if it's just the modern take of it, or if it's just that I appreciate the value that, that the Flash of other superheroes, as opposed to the Flash of the speed of this, the grandioseness doesn't really necessarily save the day all the time. And it's the small town superhero. It's really well done, and I love this character, and I definitely love how he's portrayed nowadays.
See, it's interesting that you say that like he wasn't a character you necessarily were drawn to as a kid, because I was kind of the same way. I mean, I was Superman and Batman and Spider-Man and Hulk and X-Men, whatever. Yep. And so I kind of came late to the Flash game, but as I've watched the Flash and I've got a few Flash comics and whatnot, you really kind of get the sense that while, yes, his ability is that he moves fast, that they actually do a lot with him. He's a very more nuanced character than you get an idea of when you first just kind of take a glance at him. But the Flash has been around for a long time.
Yes.
I think the Flash was first introduced in like January of 1940. So I mean, we're talking pre-World War II, or right around.
Nobody was even alive back then.
Right. So the Flash started in what's considered the golden age of comics, right? We've got three basic ages in comics. You got the golden age, which was, pretty much everything prior to about the 1960s. And you got the silver age, which was like the 60s and 70s. And then pretty much everything that's kind of current from, the late 70s kind of on to now. And so he started way back when. He was originally played by, or not originally played, the original Flash was Jay Garrick.
Right.
He was a college athlete, and basically he was exposed to like heavy water vapor, and that's what gave him his abilities.
That's why I keep taking steam baths.
Right? You just hope that one day you'll become fast, right? But Jay Garrick, the version of the Flash that a lot of people knew back way in the Golden Age was Jay Garrick's version of the Flash. What probably most I'd say people are familiar with is the Silver Age version of the Flash, which is Barry Allen. Barry Allen was a forensic scientist who basically got spilled a whole bunch of chemicals on him during kind of this storm, and then that led to the Speed Force and his super speed and whatnot. That's the character that is being portrayed on the TV show right now, The Flash.
Yep.
That version ran from like 56 to like 1985. And then the comics picked him up again in like 2008 to present. So, I mean, that version of the Flash has been around for 40 some years, active at least.
Right.
There's also the Wally West version of the Flash, which kind of was Barry's nephew, kind of became a Kid Flash. And then most recently, there was a version for a little while, Bart Allen. And Bart Allen was basically Barry Allen's, I think, grandson. Huh. What's interesting, though, about the Flash is in almost every iteration of the Flash is either a founding member of the Justice League of America, the Justice Society of America, or Teen Titans. Yeah. He's always one of the pillars of this super group on the DC side.
But he's always been on the down low. Like, he's not the standout person. He's there, but he's reliable. I've never heard people like disparage him like Aquaman. But
no.
But yeah, I mean, he's never been kind of like prime time. He's prime time these days.
It's also kind of interesting though. Like you say, he's not prime time. But like the other people in this is like Superman,
right?
Wonder Woman, Batman. The holy trinity of DC is in this massive group. And so it's like, oh, and there's also Cyborg and Aquaman and the Flash. You're like, oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, I get it. Like he's going to be, overshadowed a little bit, right? And you got the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, but I mean, these days, I don't know. He's definitely standing out on his own.
Well, and that's the thing is that there's a very popular show right now, that stars Grant Gustin as the Flash.
Yeah, and
that's a big deal. Have you watched much of that show?
I've watched up to the first half of the 4th season. One of the things that I love about it, though, is that the show has evolved into really being a show about, I mean, yes, it's an ensemble cast, but there's just so much more that's going on with all these other characters now, too, not just the Flash. And that's always kind of a risky proposition. That same exact approach did not work for the Arrow, I think.
Right.
But we also, in some of that, we also see the Wally West Flash, and we see a couple other things that kind of relate to that. So through that, I'm learning more about the universe of the Flash than I ever thought I was going to, and it's pretty interesting,
right? So let's talk about the Flash. Let's talk about some of his abilities.
He's fast.
Yeah, let's take the most obvious, the easiest one, right? He's really freaking fast.
Well, that's all he does. He's fast. That's it.
Well, that's not entirely true, though, right?
Well, isn't it, though?
I mean, yes, but I mean the subtleties of it. So there's a few things that he does, right? There's the fact that he's super fast, and right, he can run super fast. But then there's also the fact that he does some other things that in some like later versions of the Flash, he can vibrate fast enough that he can like pass through walls.
Yep.
And they basically call it like quantum tunneling. And they basically kind of, will explain it that like he can shift his molecules so fast that his molecules can literally slide around the other stationary molecules.
Right.
Which is kind of cool because it gives him an opportunity. I think on the TV show they call it phasing. Sometimes sure. I think that, but he can like, he can get in and out of places that he normally couldn't. He also can vibrate his vocal cords so fast that he can change and hide his voice. So he basically can sound,
he's his own vocoder.
Different. Yeah, basically. But what's really interesting though to me is his ability that he can go so fast with his speed force that he can go back in time or go forward in time. And the time travel aspect of the Flash, for me, opens up a lot of these really great abilities to tell some really cool stories. And there are things that, if you just ran fast, you can go catch this guy there, go stop a speeding bullet, blah, blah, blah. But the ability to go back in time or forward in time, then it lets you play around with timelines. And I think that's always interesting to me. And I know currently on the TV show, they've done this a few times, right?
Well, yeah. There's this major story arc that I had actually heard about briefly. And I think maybe I got it from DC Universe Online. Maybe I got it from discussing this with Justin, who's a huge Flash freak.
And it's huge in the comics.
Right.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, so Flashpoint.
Flashpoint,
right?
yep.
This major event that he goes and changes this one key pivotal moment in his own history, and everything that cascades to that basically develops this entire new reality that it's kind of like a Kelvin timeline from Star Trek, if you will.
Right. Yes.
It kind of reboots everything into an unfamiliar way to him.
Right. Well, the interesting thing is they did this in the TV show, but in the comics, this event, this Flashpoint, which started this whole kind of Crisis on Infinite Earths storyline, basically they use this as a way to reboot all of DC's comics.
Right.
So basically, because he changes something, it changes everyone's backstories. It changes all the prior events. And so it actually gave DC the ability with this one incident to basically say, hey, we're gonna kind of start fresh, and we're going to write all of our characters different. So that's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, everything. And that's kind of a cool thing to know, like, this character had that moment that literally rebooted an entire, comic world.
Sure. Now that's from our perspective, but really from the comic creators' perspectives, I mean, I would think actually that they wanted that opportunity and thus they created Flashpoint to solve that.
Sure.
Maybe.
Sure.
But either way, I mean, I know a couple comics collectors who are frustrated by the fact that DC keeps rebooting over and over and over again.
True.
But it actually gave me the opportunity to kind of jump into things. I did not collect comics as a kid. I rarely read them, but like with something like the New 52 or something, where they have a reboot opportunity and you can kind of get these new fresh takes on characters and stuff, or Flashpoint. I like it because that's something that I can say, I can join in with everybody else who's reading the comic, and we have a baseline.
Well, the interesting thing, too, is that with the Flash, the Flash was the first character to introduce the idea of like multiple Earths, like multiple dimensions in the comics.
Right.
Which is part of the reason why you get comic book collectors that do make that complaint, because they've rebooted, DC's rebooted and rebooted and rebooted, it feels like. And so they can write different things. But I like in the TV show how they have they have brought these different Earths together. So they have, like, they call them like Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, Earth 29, 47, whatever. Which has been interesting because then they've had opportunities to do crossovers between the characters. So, for instance, we have our version of the Flash on the TV show, which is played by Grant Gustin. And then they were able to bring John Wesley Shipp back to play the Jay Garrick version of the Flash from a different Earth. And so it was kind of this, crossover of the Golden Age Flash versus the Silver Age Flash they did on the show. That actually happened in the comics as well. And it was the Flash was the first character that ever had a crossover with a different version of himself. And so I like that. I like anything that involves messing around with timelines and mucking around things, because I think there's some great stories that can be told there.
Sure. And they take advantage of that. They do that definitely a lot in DC Universe Online. I know I'm kind of the only one waving that particular flag, but DC Universe Online actually has a lot of great elements of comics history, and they try to incorporate the major DC events, including Flashpoint, or like the Lantern League and things like that. So we get a glimpse into the Flash definitely from an interactive perspective that we don't necessarily get from the comics or from the TV show. You get to actually take part in some of the story and kind of shape some of those events. And but the crossover stuff is fantastic. The alternate Earths, that's the one idea I love most, I think, about the universe. It's pretty fantastic to be able to participate in it as well, because they do the portals, they do the timey-wimey stuff. They've got some of the classic Flash villains in there, which, I think we're remiss not to really bring up like some of the Flash villains as well.
Absolutely, because there's some really good ones.
The Trickster. He is one of my absolute favorite. He's kind of like a lesser version of the Joker, if you will. Or not the Joker, the Riddler. Riddler. But he, especially in the new one, because he was Mark Hamill played the Trickster in the original Flash.
Yes. And
then he plays the same character in the new version of the Flash. Kind of brought back, escapes from prison, whatever the case may be. Very animated. I think it's really kind of the same character as Hamill's the Joker. Like, the voice is the same, the cackling's the same, all that's there. So it's kind of like a little bit of tee. I see the Joker in this character as well, and that's part of the universe. Right. It works well, though. I thought it was great. So that's my favorite villain. Who's yours?
Oh, I really like the Reverse Flash.
Yeah.
Reverse Flash, because it's, this whole idea that it's almost a mirror image of the Flash. Instead of the red suit with the yellow symbol, it's the yellow suit with the red symbol on it. And it's done in a way that, like, you just don't know what's going to happen, right? Because you're like, they have all the same abilities, but the Reverse Flash seems to be like 3 steps ahead of the Flash all the time. And that's one of my favorites.
Who's the gorilla?
Gorilla Grodd.
Gorilla Grodd.
Yeah, Gorilla Grodd's kind of cool. This big, massive gorilla that can, like, mental telepathy and can read minds and control people.
I love that, because he was like one of the first monsters of the week kind of thing for them. And now he keeps coming back, in different circumstances. And that is part of what I like about the show as well. The Monster of the Week thing, while you still have this overarching story, the Monster of the Week gives them something kind of new to face off against, and it's either typically someone else who's been affected by the radiation that the Flash was, which was really kind of the focus of the first season. And then they discover that there's more of them, from other sources and things like that. And so I like that every episode kind of has its own unique take. But, you've still got something working in the background.
Yeah, you do have that. There's been a lot of other stuff. Like, I was trying to think, I think it's Captain Cold.
Oh, geez, Captain Cold and
what's the other one? It's like Captain Cold, and then it's like
his brother.
His brother is like a fire something. I can't remember what his name is.
I should know this.
Heat Wave, right?
Heat Wave, yeah.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is those two actors were also on Fox's Prison Break.
Right.
And kind of like the opposite kind of roles as far as like the smart guy and stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, so real good villains. I don't know that I put any of the villains on the Flash like up in like the upper echelon of like Lex Luthor, the Joker.
Not even Reverse Flash?
Maybe the Reverse Flash. Because
he's definitely like Kingpin material.
Yeah, maybe the Reverse Flash, but I mean, like Trickster's, man. Yeah, like you said, kind of a watered down version of like the Riddler. Yeah, but still a lot of fun and played up fabulously by Mark Hamill in 2 different iterations of the show.
Yep.
So a lot of great villains in the Flash. There's one other thing I wanted to kind of hit on with the Flash that I really enjoy. Oh, so. I have this problem, and this happened to me years ago when Smallville was on TV, and they were going to do the Superman Returns movie, and I was like, freaking cast Tom Welling as Superman, because he was playing that character on TV so well and killing it.
Yeah.
And so when the new Justice League movie came out, I was like, okay, I get it. They're not going to cast John Wesley Shipp as the Flash in this because they're going to go with a younger Flash. Cast Grant Gustin because he's playing it, amazingly on the TV show and is playing it really, really well. And of course, they don't do that. They go with a different actor. They go with Ezra Miller.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course they say, well, the reason why, we have a different version of the Flash is because basically we're on 2 different Earths. They're kind of going with that, the multiverse kind of theory. And so that's how they're saying why their TV is separate from their movies. But what did you think of Ezra Miller's Flash in the Justice League movie?
So to give a little backstory, I loved John Wesley Shipp to begin with as a kid, and seeing him brought back into the current Flash TV show was just so freaking brilliant.
And I gotta say, sorry, real quick, I love his portrayal of Barry Allen's dad, Henry Allen. Like every single time they're on like screen together, there's just something that I'm like, man, like he could be my dad. Like he just has that dad vibe down pat.
Yeah, amazing. He definitely has that my dad in prison vibe. It's just
wrongfully accused, man. Wrongfully accused.
The evidence was faked. No, Grant Gustin, I like him, and he I think is responsible more so than any other actor that's portrayed him for bringing new life into the Flash and making it very, very relevant to modern comics. But he's a serious version of the Flash. What we see with Ezra Miller is not.
No.
Ezra Miller's Flash is funny as beep. And he's just got that whole nervous everything down, and he's got the perfect lines, and I know that the lines aren't necessarily his from writing, but his delivery is just so amazing, and it tells me he's ready to just take off at any given moment. He's just wound up, and his like banter with Batman in that movie was just great. I loved Ezra Miller as the Flash, and I can't wait to see his standalone. So I was unexpected with that. I did not think I would like this at all because I was rooting for Grant Gustin.
Yeah, I was rooting for Grant Gustin as well. When I saw Ezra Miller and I kind of saw his costume during the promotional stills for Justice League, I was like, this kind of has like the armor look to it, and I like the, maybe the more traditional kind of cloth, spandexy look.
Well, this is Batman's Iron Spider suit for Spider-Man.
Right, exactly. But I got to say, though, the Ezra Miller version, I mean, he was comic relief. He was so much fun. I actually had the same thought as you that I wanted to see a Flash movie more than I did the Justice League movie after I finished Justice League. And I actually went, I kind of want to see an Aquaman movie. This could be kind of good. Now, I don't know if I feel so much the same about it after seeing that trailer, but I want to know what's happening with the Flash movie. I want to know what Ezra Miller's going to bring, because I think they have the ability to play on that character and kind of play up, the whole, he's a teenager and he's kind of awkward and nervous and maybe socially isn't, all
he is
all put together.
He is the DC analog of Spider-Man.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
100%.
I mean, and let's be honest. Isn't that kind of in the Silver Age and the Modern Age version, isn't the Flash basically, DC's version of Spider-Man in a way?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really.
Oh no, I'm saying that in general, not just the Justice League movie. It's definitely the analog is there. The young high school kid figuring out his way, happens by luck into these amazing powers, and figuring them out in the first place is half of the story. And even when the Flash starts to get a little older in the comics, they introduce Kid Flash, Wally West, which is still kind of like the analog for Spider-Man. Right.
So, yeah, I tell you what, in recent years, Flash literally has become one of my favorites. Absolutely, hands down. And I'm loving what they're doing on TV. I'm loving what they're doing on movies. I need to read more of the comics because there's so many years of good stuff.
I need to catch up just on season 4. My barrier to that was feeling like I needed to catch up on all the CW stuff for the Arrow, the Flash, the other Misfit group, whatever.
The League of Legends and League of Tomorrow.
Legends of Tomorrow.
Legends of Tomorrow. Wow. League of Legends.
Though Supergirl is pretty awesome. I could watch that show. But I think I'm just going to give up and detach that and just continue to watch The Flash, because even with the crossover stuff, Flash holds his own. Yeah. There's this little mentorship kind of thing from the Arrow, which is so unnecessary at this point.
Yeah.
I don't even think it really needed to be there, but you've got to have somebody who teaches him not just how to deal with his powers, but how to be a hero. So, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I love this character, and I'm excited for more. Like I said, we're watching the 4th season on Netflix right now, trying to get caught up, because I believe the 5th season starts sometime in October.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so,
it does.
We got to get prepared so we can be caught up in current. But anyway, like I said, this whole kind of idea of doing a spotlight definitely came because I got to meet John Wesley Shipp and had a cool conversation with him and got to take a photo with him, and I was pretty excited, and I can't wait to show Jackson one day this and explain that to him. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to focus on just a single character. I don't think we've ever done this before on the podcast.
Well, I know you say that it was inspired by your event where you met Mr. Shipp, but really what happened is in the future, I actually ran into Grant Gustin, and he actually got all the powers from the show, including the time travel, and I manipulated all those events for you to meet John Wesley Shipp, so you're welcome.
So you're saying that the Flash, in the future, traveled back into time to get an older version of the Flash to meet me in order to set up this podcast.
Flashpoint 2.
Flashpoint 2.
I think we just named the episode.
I know what we're calling this episode. Oh, wow. Well, that is so cool. Well, let's ask a question to the Super Friends. What do you say, Stu?
Sure. I mean, we do that every week. We figure, we don't want to have to go back in time to fix this one.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, you do know the Flash, and so do I in a way, so...
Well...
So I think our question is going to be this. We did something a little different this week. We wanted to do a spotlight on a single superhero or a character. And so, Super Friends, we want to ask you, what superhero or maybe villain, you know what? Give us a superhero and a villain. Let's do that. What superhero and villain would you like us to highlight and discuss on a future show?
Discuss, Moneypenny.
And maybe tell us a reason why. Like if you're curious about a character you don't know about, or if there's something that you just feel like we need to show a little more love to, superhero or villain, let us know. You can reach us at all the normal places. Email, which is forwardofnerd@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/forwardofnerd. Twitter @forwardofnerd. Or the old voicemail, 801-477-7687, and we will definitely read and listen to your answers next week.
So with that though, I want to add one little thing. We started to hint at this last week.
Yes.
And that's that, this was, what was the episode number here?
94.
And what's the Bulls reference?
No Bulls reference.
Okay, thank God.
They didn't win it in '94.
Okay, good.
I could make an OJ reference.
Oh no, no! I didn't bring my gloves.
Okay.
But we're coming up on 100 quick,
That we are.
and I mean, we're still kind of thinking through some things that we want to do for a 100th episode. One thing that we know we want to include is you, the Super Friends, and we want you to be able to participate in this in some way. And so, like, one of the things that I would love to hear, and I know Spencer would love to hear, is like, what are some of your favorite moments from the show? I mean, I know there's 100 episodes is a lot to kind of mentally categorize yourself, even if we have, all the recordings here. So, but I mean, just like anything that stood out or some element of the show that you like, or something that you'd even like us to do, or even if it's something that you would like to see on the 100th episode, whatever it is, how do you want to participate in this? Give us something. We want to include all of you. You've definitely been through this longer than I have, even some of you. So, hey, every idea is great, but we want to hear the kudos and accolades from you guys, from your perspectives, and we're definitely going to be celebrating you in return, I promise.
Absolutely. I think that's a good idea. So start getting those thinking caps on and start writing down some notes and get ready, because you guys are going to be a big part of, I think, our episode 100. At least that's the tentative plan. That's what we're kind of looking at.
Either that or we're time traveling to where we make billions off of this and we're going to Tahiti.
Somewhere, right? Well, Stu, get some rest, man. Get feeling better. We want you back in full strength next week, and I hope that you can do that.
Yeah, otherwise my head will have fallen off and you'll need a new co-host.
Yeah, let's not do that. That would be bad.
Okay. For you, buddy. I will
Thanks.
keep my head on my shoulders.
I appreciate that, man. It's the things you do for me. I like. Well, Super Friends, thank you so much for joining us this week. From all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude podcast to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you.
Always.